Designer rice. This word designer usually comes with dresses. You have designer saris, blouse, etc. This particular dress differs from the normal dress in appearance. What about designer rice? A rice is designed exclusively for Indians. What is the necessity? To combat a problem which the whole world is facing. Unfortunately, India, the capital, diabetes mellitus, a lifestyle disorder, a metabolic disorder. The body doesn't know how to handle carbohydrate or glucose, and that leads to diabetes mellitus. And in lifestyle, food takes a major part. Indians get this problem because the Indians' staple food is rice. And diabetes is directly linked with this rice carbohydrate converted into glucose, the immediate source of energy for our body. We cannot avoid taking rice because we are used to that. Among the rice, the chance of blood sugar rise, if it is less, it's a better rice. The thing is, we have limited varieties of rice. We have to choose one among these rice. Why this rice is better than that rice? What decides is the glycemic index. A word about the glycemic index to understand how this designer rice differs from the usual rice. Glycemic index is a number, it's an imaginary number, a comparative number. A carbohydrate is compared with glucose. All carbohydrates are converted into glucose before it is absorbed, and that causes the rise and fall of blood sugar or blood glucose. Take a particular amount or quantity of glucose, for example, 100 grams of glucose. Give it to a person and measure his blood glucose. Measure how much the blood sugar has gone up. Now, keep another food which contains the same 100 grams of carbohydrate and measure his blood glucose. When glucose rises to a particular level and falls, for that pattern of rise and fall, you give glucose a number that is 100, because we are going to compare the other food with this glucose. So glucose is given an imaginary number 100. The second food, when you give, if this food raises the blood sugar to the same level and it falls down, mimics, resembles exactly like glucose, you give 100 to this substance. Another substance, if the rise and fall is only 50% like that of glucose, it behaves 50% like glucose, so I give 50 to. This is what a glycemic index. Remember, when the blood glucose rises very sharp, you call it a glucose spike. To reduce this spike, our body has to release extra insulin because the body wants to keep the blood sugar below 140 at any time after a food. So it releases insulin and tries to bring it down. If the glucose spike is prevented, if the substance is made to behave only 50% like that of glucose, the amount of insulin will also be reduced to 50% and less work by your pancreas. So what I want to tell is, the rice which we are taking, white rice, the glycemic index is 70. If we do something to reduce this glycemic index of our white rice, then the glucose spike can be prevented. This is one important approach. People have tried this in this rice. So you are altering the composition of the rice. After all, rice will have carbohydrate, a little protein, some vitamins depending upon the polished or unpolished, and of course some fiber. Take a rice, design it to reduce the glycemic index. Because the composition is modified, the structure is modified, that is why it is called designer rice. One important point is this is not genetically modified rice. Genetically modified or biomodified rice, or you take a rice and alter the genes, the DNA, etc., and you cultivate that. So it is a seed. From that, you cultivate a different crop. The purpose of genetically modification is the hybrid variety yield to increase the yield, second, resistant to the insects, a short period, using less water. All these things can be achieved by modifying it genetically. But this rice is not genetically modified, but a rice is taken and it is made into flour, and after that you modify the composition or component of this rice, add something, again you make it into a rice. So here a rice is made into another type of rice, bio modified or genetically modified. It is like you are doing it before birth. A designer rice is something like after birth. This is the difference. A rice is modified into another rice. Indians have another problem like anemia. Some micronutrients or minerals or something is added to this rice. You can target two things. One is prevent diabetes. Second, treat anemia and increase his hemoglobin or RBC, whatever it is. First, how they reduce the glycemic index from 70 to 54. Rice is a starch, and you have two types of starch. One is a resistant starch and non-resistant starch. Non-resistant starch, it is digested very fast, and this is the one which causes the glucose spike. If I reduce the quantity of this non-resistant starch, I can prevent the glucose spike. That is done here. Second is a resistant starch. This resistant starch is not at all digested because we lack the enzyme for it. So it is not absorbed. That means it will not raise the blood glucose. You increase this resistant starch so that the glucose spike is again prevented. Second is you increase the protein content of the rice. Around 3 times the protein content is increased. What do you achieve by this? A protein deficiency is corrected. When you take a rice, which is usually a carbohydrate, now it becomes a source of protein. The protein takes longer time to get digested in the stomach. This protein and the carbohydrate is mixed in this. So the protein delays the digestion of carbohydrate also. So when it is delayed, the spike is reduced. It is not suddenly absorbed, but slowly absorbed because of the protein. The protein stays more time in the stomach because it takes more time for the protein to get digested. The protein and the glucose stays in the stomach for more time. It is the emptying of the stomach is delayed. Only when it reaches the next place, namely the intestine, the absorption will take place. This also reduces the sudden or fast absorption of glucose. Here also the spike is reduced. When the protein and the carbohydrate stays for longer time in the stomach, you don't feel hungry. So the hunger is delayed. If you take glucose alone, it is rapidly absorbed and comes down rapidly. Once it comes down, you feel hungry and you want to take more. That urge is delayed by this protein. Then what else they have done? They have added more fiber to this, which is not digested, not absorbed. It just increases the bulk of the food. It stays in the stomach. This also prevents the hunger. It also delays the absorption in reducing the glycemic index. So white rice, 70 glycemic index is now reduced to 54. The glucose spike is prevented. Your pancreas takes rest. It doesn't need to produce more insulin to face this glucose spike. Take this type of rice continuously in a planned manner. Even you can make a pre-diabetic person into a normal person by this food habit. But remember, this alone will not address the problem, because diabetes is a multifactorial disease. You've got a lot of facts like genetics, age, your family history, your eating habits, your sedentary life, your stress. All these things interact, and the result is diabetes. You may not do exercise, but you have to take food daily. This rice is designed for Indians, especially. Many people are used to this rice, so they modify this rice and you call it designer rice. And next thing is anemia. 50% of our Indians have this anemia. When I say anemia, you will immediately say low hemoglobin. What is hemoglobin? Hemoglobin is made of iron. So when you have less iron, you will have less hemoglobin. The matter doesn't end there. Hemoglobin is carried by red blood corpuscles, RBCs. When you have less RBCs, the quantity of hemoglobin carried by these RBCs will also be less. That is also anemia. So I have to treat iron deficiency. I have to maintain the number of RBCs to the normal level. For that, we add iron to this rice. The body can synthesize hemoglobin. Second, we add folic acid and B12. These two vitamins are called maturation factors. So they help in the maturation of RBCs. So unless you get a matured RBC, they cannot carry full amount of hemoglobin. So to maintain the hemoglobin and to maintain the RBC count, we are adding folic acid and B12. And this process is called fortification or enriched. But remember, this process is a tedious process. A rice is taken, it is made into a flour, and you design the rice. The flour is again made into a rice, the shape, everything, the look and all. So people may ask whether it is an artificial rice. No, it is not artificial rice, but a natural rice made into flour, and artificially we add. It has got both components, artificial as well as natural. So I am Dr. BALA'S. We'll meet again in some other video.